Good morning. Welcome to the Files of UFO Desk. Join us as we escape from New York and other mundane places so that we may explore UFOs, the paranormal, and the unknown. This morning, our guest is Maria Cuccia. Maria is a housewife and music teacher who lives in Long Island. And through her life, the last few years, she's had some extraordinary experiences. Out of those experiences has come some extraordinary music. I'm Paul Williams, producer of UFO Desk. Stay tuned. This is UFO Desk, inside of Sidney Smith's Carrier Wave. Well, good morning. This is UFO Desk. I am Paul Williams, and my guest this morning is a very special lady from out in Long Island, Maria Cuccia. Maria has put together several CDs, one in which I am particularly in love with, called Empath, Abduction. You've heard a little bit of it here on UFO Desk, and those of you who have picked up on some of the promo cards I've done, you've heard some of her music there. But Maria has a story to tell us as to where this music comes from. Maria Cuccia, welcome to UFO Desk.
Thank you. Hi, Paul.
Hi, it's great to have you here this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. You had some strange experiences back in the early 90s.
Yes.
Concerning UFOs and alien contact. You had, prior to that, though, you had really no interest in this phenomena at all. Is that so?
None whatsoever.
Why don't you tell us your story?
Yeah, in fact, I didn't even know it had anything to do with alien contact. It started in about 1992, and it was actually around this time of the year. It was around Christmas. And I started having a lot of experiences with electrical appliances. I would walk into a room and things would blow, or I'd be drying my hair and the hair dryer would blow. I'd go into the car, the radio would blow, and then I'd go into another car and the same thing would happen. And it got to the point where people were starting to notice it, that every time I walked into a room, something would happen. Even computers would go haywire, things like that. And then what started happening to me was at night when I'd go to sleep, I just had a lot of strange experiences occur. And the one I like to talk about most was the one that was most vivid for me. It was the most conscious experience that I had, most detailed. And that's when I was awakened at about 3 o'clock a.m., and I felt as if my soul was leaving my body. And I felt myself rising upward in a tremendous fast rate of speed. And the next thing I remember is I was on what looked like a spaceship. And there was this non-human being standing next to me, and he instructed me to look out this huge window, this huge glass window. When I looked out the window, I saw a group of children. And one of the children was a boy, and he stood out from the crowd, and he looked at me and slowly waved his arm. And I turned to the being next to me, and I said, "Is this my son?" And he said, "Yes, this is your son." And I said, "What is his name?" And he said, "His name is Elijah." And he said, "It's time for you to go back now." And the next thing I remember, I was moving downward, again at a tremendous fast rate of speed. And the next thing I remember is I felt like a tremendous pound in my chest. And I sat up in bed, and I kept hearing his name, Elijah. And I just will never forget that night with this boy. And they were telling me that he was my son.
Prior to that, you had a pregnancy that seemed to have terminated.
Yes. About 8 years prior to that, I was 3 months pregnant. I had gone to the doctor, we heard the heartbeat and all, everything was fine. And soon after that, I had a miscarriage. So I went to the hospital, they did, the usual routine, and they sent me home. And the next day, I was contacted by my doctor's receptionist, and she told me to get down to the radiologist's office immediately. She said, everything checked out fine. She said, but we haven't found the fetus. And they made me rush over to the radiologist's office, and I had to undergo the sonogram internally, externally. They were searching for this fetus because they were afraid that I may have had an ectopic pregnancy or something, but they never found it. Now, at the time, like I said, this was 8 years prior to my experience, I didn't think anything of it. I just thought it was strange, but as long as I was healthy, it didn't matter. And life went on, and I got pregnant again after that. I had a healthy child, and like I said, didn't think anything of it. And then I had this experience back in 1992, and I thought it was something psychological with me. I said, well, I must have suppressed my depression over the miscarriage, and maybe for some reason 8 years later it was emerging in this experience that was more intense than a dream. So I was trying to pacify myself with it, and a few weeks later I saw ads on TV for the movie called Intruders by Bud Hopkins, and I was compelled to watch this movie. And when I watched it, I saw that women all over the world were having similar experiences, and it just blew my mind. I sat in my den and I was crying because it was exactly what happened to me, that I had had a miscarriage, they never found the fetus, and years later I had this experience with a non-human being, and I was on what looked like an aircraft, and I was being shown a child. And that's what started me on this search of understanding this field of ufology, because I just found it mind-blowing that other women were having the same exact experience.
And then you had other contact after you saw the child. But when you saw the child, what did the condition of the child seem to be?
Oh, he just looked like a regular, well, I wouldn't say regular human child. I didn't see him up close. It was somewhat of a distance, but his head did seem larger than normal, and I really don't remember seeing hair on his head. And there was a whole group of children, but it was a distance. I didn't have any fine detail, but I do remember a long, thin arm because he was just waving it very slowly, looking at me, and I'll never forget that wave. My experiences were really on a nightly basis for about a period of 6 months, and it got to the point where my husband thought I was having a nervous breakdown because I would be awakened at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd get up. I started doing automatic writing. I was seeing these visions. I was having all these experiences, talking about them. All of a sudden, it's just, I was leading a normal life, and then I started talking about these bizarre experiences.
What were you doing before you had these experiences? What was Maria Cuccia's life like?
I'm a woman who lives out on Long Island. I live a very typical suburban life. I'm married, and I have 3 children, 3 daughters, and I'm a piano teacher. I'm the neighborhood piano teacher. I have a studio in my home, and that's all I did. I was raising my children and teaching other children how to play piano. Very average, ordinary life.
Church-going, Catholic family.
Yes, Catholic, right, church-going.
Your husband's a chiropractor.
Yes, he's a chiropractor.
How did your experiences affect him when you started telling him? You were saying that these experiences started occurring almost daily. What was his take on it?
It was terrible, actually. Being a chiropractor, a man of profession, and he had a very clinical viewpoint where he just thought that something was wrong with me psychologically, and he was insisting I see a psychiatrist. At the time, I was seeking out help. I went to a priest. I was talking to a priest about it, and I did go to a psychiatrist, and I had also gone to a hypnotherapist. I found a hypnotherapist who was very much well-read as far as this field of ufology goes, and he decided to do some hypnosis treatments. That was very frightening. I recalled beings all around me, and they were doing things to me physically, and I was screaming under hypnosis. It was horrible. But at one point, these beings were telling me they wanted me to do certain things for them, and one of the things was to write music. And you can hear me under hypnosis screaming that I don't write music. I only teach piano. I've never written music. And you can hear the whole argument, going back and forth, and they were saying, but we will send people to you. It was like my voice was changing when I spoke, when I was recalling what the aliens were saying. It was almost like you could hear the conversation between them and me. We will send people to you. And then I was just frantically saying, but I don't know how to do this, or, I've never done this before. And it was going back and forth. And when I came out of the hypnosis, the therapist said to me, you've got to write music. They want you to write music. And he actually had a little keyboard in his office, and he handed it to me. And I looked at him very upset, and I took his keyboard and I threw it across the room. And I said, what, are you crazy? Who wants me to write music? Who are they? What are they? What is going on? What is this all about? I didn't understand it. And he saw how upset I was, and he asked me to leave his office. And I left, and a couple of days later I tried to contact him because I, again, wanted to understand what was happening to me under hypnosis, and he refused to answer my phone calls. He didn't want to deal with me, and he had cut me off. And a few days, and I tried calling him, I tried contacting him, and a few days later, I was approached by two plainclothes police officers, and they told me that if I were to try to get in touch with him anymore, that I would be arrested. He had charges of harassment sent out against me.
Was an audio recording of the session made?
Yes, there was. And in fact, that was one of the things I said when I tried to contact him, because I wanted to take this to a professional at this point. I figured if he's not going to help me, let me at least take the recorded session to a psychiatrist, let them hear what happened to me under hypnosis, and maybe the psychiatrist would get to the bottom of it. So when I contacted him and asked him for the tape, he just said, oh, I destroyed that tape. And then, like I said, then he cut me off and wouldn't talk to me. So that was 5 years ago. I had the only proof that I had of the hypnosis session was supposedly destroyed by him. Now, just recently, that occurred 5 years ago. Now, recently, I've been very much involved in, speaking at a UFO conference that we had recently in Levittown, and there was an article done in Long Island Boys. Well, he apparently had seen that, and he contacted me several weeks ago. And when he contacted me, he praised me for my courage for speaking out on the subject, and then I said to him, well, why did you cut me off? And then he claimed that the government ransacked his office and forced him to move out of town. This is what he said to me. But I don't know if I believe him, but that's his story for why I haven't heard from him in 5 years.
Maria, I would like us to take a little break right now. We're going to listen to some of the music that you've created on Empath. You're listening to UFO Desk over WBAI New York, inside of Sydney Smith's Carrier Wave.
Reality? Imagination? Were they nothing more than my own frightened apotheosis of the visitors? Unfortunately, I could not know an answer to these questions. Thus, I was unable to put this particular fear to rest. But I was also willing to demean a relationship that was beginning to bear such marvelous fruit. I decided not only to live with my fear, but to plunge deeper, if I could, into the relationship. That seemed to me to be the only way to learn.
Tell us what we're listening to, Maria.
Yes, this is called Spiritual Growth. That opening line that I was reciting was actually a reading from Whitley Strieber's book, Transformation. I had really enjoyed that book, Transformation. I related to it very well, and I had contacted Whitley, and he gave me permission to do so. And I just felt that, the best way to deal with these experiences was to just face it. I stopped seeking help outwardly. I stopped asking people to figure out what happened to me and decided to just try to figure it out myself. And I got very much involved in meditation. And in fact, when I started meditating, that's when I started actually hearing the music. It started flooding into my mind, and that's what began my writing.
When you started doing the music, you say it came to you through meditation, but the visitors also mentioned that people would come to you.
Yes.
Tell us about that. You've had some very interesting experiences with folks showing up to help you in your production of not only Empath, but of the other works that you've put together.
Exactly. My first CD that was meditation music. I call it Meditation Music by Elijah. Like I said, I got into meditation, and I was hearing the music, and I begged my husband to get me a synthesizer, and he did. He surprised me with it one day, and I started to write music, but I didn't know the first thing about recording. And I was thinking of going back to school, but soon after that, I met a musician right here from Long Island, and he had just graduated Five Towns College. And we became friendly, and I said to him, do you know anything about how to record and how to put a CD together? And he said yes, that he and his friends who just graduated the college knew all there was to know. So he offered to help me. So together we put the meditation music on, the first one was on cassette tape, and then the second one was on CD. And then we started marketing the music. And through marketing the music, I got a call from California, from Gerry Cannizzaro of Rock Dog Records. And he was impressed with the meditation music and started asking me what inspired me to do it. And I told him about my experiences. He was very interested in all of it. And we started talking quite frequently. And then we decided to put together the CD that you're listening to now, the Abduction CD by Empath, because that's how we came up with the idea of writing a concept CD where I could just tell my story in addition to creating the music. And that's how this project came about. He lives in California, and I'm out here in New York, but we were able to do this by recording and sending tapes back and forth. And so none of this was done. In fact, the other musicians on the CD I haven't even met. There's a flute player, guitarist, and they all volunteered to help out with this project, and I never even met them. And that's how this one was done.
That's fantastic how the way things work.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So your contact helped you develop natural talents that you had sitting around, latent, it would seem.
Yes, but I had no idea. I never would have embarked on this journey had I not had the experience.
You're a very brave lady coming out this morning and joining us here at UFO Desk, telling your story. Really appreciate it. Anything you would like to say to folks there in the last few minutes that we've got about 2 minutes left? I do want to say that if you want to pick up Empath, Abduction, you can pick it up. It is on Rock Dog Records. But you know the stores and places where it's sold, Maria?
Well, there's a 1-800 number they can call. It's 1-800-339-0567. And that's Rock Dog Records.
Would you give us that one more time?
Yes, 1-800-339-0567.
1-800-339
0567.
0567. I'm sure you're going to pick this up because the next cut I'm going to play for you on here is going to blow your mind. It's something that everyone likes. Maria, don't go away.
Okay.
Let's let this play out, and then I want you to tell us about Control.
Okay.
Okay? You know, Maria, while we're listening to this, who mixed this? This is a beautiful piece. What was on your mind when you wrote it, actually, before who mixed it?
This one.
I think I've played this 3 times this morning now.
This is My Guardian Angel, correct?
Yes.
Track 10. This, actually, the melody was taken from part of Close Encounters. I was thinking about that movie when I had written it.
Mm-hmm. I just heard the chord. Boom, boom.
Yes. I was thinking about that. But My Guardian Angel is basically because I do feel I have a very powerful guardian angel. And I feel as if I'm being guided. And I'm very grateful for that. You know, I don't understand these experiences. I still don't even know what I feel about this whole phenomenon. You know, I had experiences that have altered my entire life. It was very, very frightening for me and very fearful. But now I'm at peace with it. And that's how I was feeling when I wrote this song, that I'm just now at peace with it. I don't have to understand what is going on or why, you know, but I'm just trying to make it a positive thing for me. And I feel that my guardian angel has enabled me to do so.
Okay, the next piece we're going to hear is called Control, and I think we're just going to let this piece take us out of here. Tell us about this, and then we'll go into it.
I think it's, when you hear the piece, it becomes quite obvious, you know, control and about the media and how they only let us know what, or the government, you know, can...
I mean, this piece is saying that that it's all a conspiracy.
Yes,
that the government does know.
That the government does know and is covering it up and just playing with our minds, basically. And I'm getting quite tired of it, you know, because I had an experience and it's so easy to make me look like a psychotic woman, you know, and it's so hard for me to prove myself to others. You know, I went through a lot of torment over this, trying to prove that what happened to me was real. And I feel that the answer is out there, but it's just being kept from us, and I think it's just really unfair. So I wanted to write this piece, Control.
Well, it's a real kick-butt piece. Maria Cuccia, thanks for being on UFO Desk this morning.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be talking to you soon.
Okay.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Our government has flat out lied to us for 40 years or more. They've threatened people and intimidated people. They've spied on UFO groups, infiltrated UFO groups, spied on researchers, compiled dossiers. Their response is bordered on paranoia.
everybody's going to believe it anyway.
Well, we here at UFO Desk would like to thank Maria Cuccia for being our guest this morning. All the music heard during the program was written and produced by Maria Cuccia, and you can pick up Empath Abduction on Rock Dog Records. You're listening to one of the pieces from Escape from New York, and the opening was also from Escape from New York. Music written by John Carpenter. This is UFO Desk, produced by Paul Williams, executive producer Sidney Smith. This is a Smith and Williams production. Thanks for being with us. Good night or good morning.